Hey, you ready? You got your notes ready to go?
As far as I know, I don't know where we're going to start, and I never do.
Oh,
but here
yeah,
we are.
well, it usually starts with football with us because that's the best, right? So,
this is,
welcome to show like 16, 17 of the Sports Wrap with George Ringer. And here we are, middle of January. It's 5:30 when we tape the show on Wednesday night, and it's still late outside.
It's still.
I know we talked about this last week, but that makes Tim very happy.
Oh, it does. And we're here at the Muni with a nice room full of the Muni.
Yeah, good crowd.
I don't see any hecklers either. That's good.
Well, you know, and maybe
they could come in later.
You were talking that maybe some of the people have had a hard time hearing us over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And basically that's because we've had a lot of people in the place.
I know.
And so they're yapping and they're listening and they're giving crap.
I like the sound effects myself.
So, we'll do that. Let's talk about the Sunday football games first.
Okay.
Of the 6+ hours of football that was on, I watched about 18 to 20 plays of the second game. Did not watch it down of the first game. But the prediction of Kansas City and San Francisco came true. You tell me why those two teams won.
Well, you know, we've been talking about this for a couple of years, the philosophy of run. You have a good time, sir. The philosophy of run versus the philosophy of pass. And I've been, you know, talking about the run and how good this does. And so you take a look, you have a San Francisco team with Jimmy Garoppolo, a very good passer, a very fine quarterback. What did he throw? 9 times. Why was he able to do that? Because, well, he's got these really good running backs. He has 3 of them that are interchangeable, and I understand all 3 will be available
for the Super Bowl in a couple weeks.
Yeah, and then also what does he have? This incredible offensive line, and that's where it started. And they just
Are you
took
surprised, folks, that it starts with the offensive line? Anyway,
so I think this is going to come down to, you know, Mahomes who has, I mean, he throws no-look passes. What can you say about this? He'll throw no-look. They had a video of him changing hands and throwing the ball with his left hand. I mean, the guy is capable, and
he's very athletic.
And well, they talked about that. They says this should put a little rest in specializing in sports, because he was an all-around athlete.
Yeah.
He could have played professional baseball. He probably still could. You know, he has that capability. He also has wide receivers that think they're an Olympic track team, and they are super fast. It's, you know, so it's going to be just the basic question: do you have a run game or do you have a pass game? And so it's going to come down to that. And if San Francisco can run the ball, Kansas City's going to have a hard time.
I agree.
If San Francisco can't contain those incredible wide receivers, it could be a long day.
It could be very interesting. I think you'll see San Francisco kind of want to take the air out of the ball and shorten the game. And Kansas City, we know, can score in bunches in a hurry. It ought to be a fun game to watch.
It will.
The Chiefs, first time they make it back in 50 years since they beat the Vikings back in 1969 after the 69 season, and so that has some nice stuff to it. And San Francisco makes it back, I think, 7th time they've been in the Super Bowl, if memory serves me correctly. And so it's going to be a fun game to watch. But I'm going to throw this out there at everybody, because I saw this on Twitter either yesterday or the day before, and I found it very interesting. Okay, so I'm going to just hear me all the way out on this. The question posed on Twitter by a Minnesota Vikings broadcaster, and I didn't look to see who it was this: if you could assure that the Vikings were going to have a top 3 offensive line and a top 3 defensive line in the NFL, but in order to be able to do that for next year, they had to give up Cousins, Diggs, Thielen, and Delvin Cook, would you do it? And it took me all of about an eighth of a second to start my responding to say, absolutely. if you've been watching this show, and some of you have been, and we still question why you're doing that, but we thank you. I've been every time I go on the air, I talk about the offensive line is so key. And why did San Francisco dominate the last 2 weeks?
The offensive line.
Because of the offensive line, and there's no doubt about that in my mind. Because they had a running back last week that ran for I think the second most yards ever in a postseason game, and he's been cut 7 times in the last 4 years. So that tells me he might be a decent back, but he is not a great back. So don't tell me about blah blah blah. You tell me about how good the offensive line for San Francisco is.
You take a
That's
look
what you need to tell me about. And so if the Vikings could do that, and they had to get rid of, I'll take 3 out of the 4 that I said. Because I said Cousins, Thielen, Diggs, and Cook. Trade 3 of them, and let's bring in 3 offensive linemen and 2 defensive linemen for those 3 guys. And we get, obviously injuries and everything can happen, but that pretty much would guarantee us of having that kind of threat on the offensive and defensive line. And our defensive line, I think, is pretty good.
They're not
I don't know. We need a lot of help there, but if we could find a couple All-Pro guys for the offensive line, I would take that in a heartbeat. And I love Delvin Cook. Don't get me wrong, but I'll take Jimmy John JoJo off the street if he knows how to run a football and can read with an offensive line that knows what they're doing. So it's an interesting question. Like I said, for me, it's a no-brainer because I believe the offense and defensive lines are that important, and it doesn't matter how good a running back. Take the best running back ever. Let's talk Jim Brown, because he was just named the best running back ever, the best football player in college football ever. Where would Jim Brown be without his offensive line?
Oh no, nowhere.
And so to me, it is what it is, and I'm sure by the time we do this show next week, there'll be a whole bunch of stories about what's going on in the Super Bowl and everything else. So we'll probably spend some more time talking there. But what do you got?
Oh no, this is just a little tidbit on the Super Bowl, and this I'm just predicting you and I aren't going, and I'll tell you why. The average price of a Super Bowl ticket is $9,590. The lowest available ticket right now is $5,727, but if you want to go big time like I did down in Indianapolis, $70,153. There seems to be money in this game, and it's it's kind of like, I think the Chiefs haven't been there in 50 years. That causes the price to go up. In Kansas City football, they're a little bit nuts. And Miami is a great place. I mean, it's kind of a nice, warm place. I mean, they did real well in Minneapolis a couple years ago, but it's still Minneapolis in wintertime. And, so it's a great place down there, but the fact of it is that I'm not going to go see that game, and neither are you. And
and I think we probably would agree. We probably have the best seat in the house.
We do.
Sitting in our sofa or our armchair or whatever it is. And I have to bring this up because Jim Nantz is probably one of the classier guys in TV broadcasting, mainly because he does everything that he does so well. Him and Mike Tirico probably are the best. If Sunday Night Football, Al Michaels was out there still doing lots and lots of stuff, he would still be in that conversation. But for Jim Nantz to throw out there to make the connection already when Kansas City goes back to the Super Bowl, that Jack Buck got to do the Super Bowl when Kansas City was there in '69, and Joe Buck's going to get to do there when he returns. I think that's a pretty cool, whether you like Joe Buck or not, and I know there's a lot of people out there who hate Joe Buck, me being one of them. It's still pretty cool that connection was made, and for Jim Nantz to bring it up in the post game. What was even better, and just shows you what a class act he is.
Well, that's right, and Joe Buck's father and Joe Buck are legends in St. Louis. And I've been to their restaurant down there, and people do bow before them, and so it's a matter of where you come from. But Fox is carrying it, and why I like that is I get one more chance to listen to Bradshaw spout off. I think Bradshaw and Chuck and Charles Barkley are the two funniest ex-athletes on TV.
Okay.
They just crack me up.
They have a good time while they're doing it.
They have a good time while they're doing it. So we get a chance to see them one more time. I woke up Monday and I thought, football's over. One more game. The football's over. And Sue says, "What? Are you depressed about the games?" No, the games are fine. What am I going to do? And so this is the lonely week of sports where we sit around and wait for things to come on. But what do we get to bring us out of the doldrums? Kansas and Kansas State.
Kansas and Kansas State. Before we leave football, I want to mention Eli Manning announced his retirement today. Love him or hate him, he won 2 Super Bowls in a tough place to play. New York's a tough place to play. Will he be considered a better quarterback than his brother? I don't believe so, but he's got more Super Bowl.
What a family!
What a family!
And I remember the old man playing both when he was at I believe Mississippi State, and then Mississippi, and then went to went to New Orleans.
Actually played for the Vikings.
Played with the Vikings.
Played with the Vikings a year.
He was a great college quarterback, and considering that they were starting at least down in New Orleans when he was down there, it was a tough go. But
let's talk about the brawl from last night between Kansas and Kansas State.
Yeah.
I was busy last night curling and kind of caught a little bit of it this morning on Twitter or ESPN, wherever I was watching. And maybe you saw a little bit more of it.
Oh, I did. I said Kansas was attempting to run out the last 4 or 5 seconds, and they carried the ball across half court. And all of a sudden, Kansas State snapped it up and drove for the basket. And the name, what is his name here? Is DeSoto?
Jawan Gordon or
Sevilla de Souza.
Yeah.
And he goes up and jams it off the glass. They go sit down. He's on the other guy's on the ground, and Silvio is looking over him and giving him the bad news. And they came up and they started swinging. Both benches emptied. They tore off right from underneath the basket all the way to the wall. And, the thing of it is, and, as I look into this, here's Kansas ranked number 3 in the nation. Got a very good team. They have, from all indications, a fairly good coaching staff, and they're right up to their butt in scandal. Not only this race, but they've got an Adidas shoe things. They're under FBI investigation. They've got all these issues, and then this pops up. It's just like, jeez, what else can possibly happen?
Well, I believe I saw that DeSouza was suspended indefinitely today, and probably rightfully so. It's something that.
He picked up a stool and held it over the head. He was going to drill a guy with it, and then somebody grabbed it and yanked it down away from him. But yeah, he was completely out of control. There's no 2 ways about it.
Yeah, and you don't like to see it. I guess in some respect, I'm a little surprised we don't see more of it. And here's why. Everything is so, and not to say 15 years ago it wasn't important, but there's so much money out there and people are doing whatever they can do to get things done. And so the fact that stuff like this doesn't happen more often, I guess, kind of surprises me, because your football, hockey, all of them. Yeah. There's how many games every night, and to think that we see this once a whatever. Yeah. It's kind of scary to think that it happens that little. When you've always told me, when you get high-strung individuals in high-strung situations, high-strung things happen. I think is somehow the way you put it. And disagreements will occur, and like I said, we hope that they never get to the point that they did last night, because last night is something that people are going to talk about for a long time, and it's unfortunate.
They are. Yeah.
So, what else did you dig up there? I got a list of stuff here, but
I've got some Gopher sports stuff.
Well, which Gopher sport would you like to start with, George?
Let's start with let's start with the women.
Let's start with women's basketball.
Okay, so
last week's show we were talking about the suspensions and
They did.
whatever else. And when I walked out the door, I took my phone out and I said, sounded like Destiny Pitts might be leaving, might be whatever. She had done that by the time, right in the middle of the show, it happened last week when we were filming it, and she decided to depart the program and then enter the transfer portal, which is the new whatever term that we're getting
I
to
don't
use.
think Coach Whalen wanted to turn her team over to her. And Destiny, with all her skills, and she averaged 16 points a game, and she can run around like a crazy one with the basketball. She just said the whole question is that the coach said, I don't like your attitude, and she took that as an offense. And you know, a lot of times when the coach says that, and I hate to say this, but the coach has said that to me, I generally find myself a place to sit down because I'm going to rest for a while.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what happened, and she took very much offense to that. The two Bello girls, the twins, I mean, these two, they drive that team as much as Destiny does. They're both 6'2", they're both strong, they both play good basketball. The coach Whalen said, I have no problems with you guys. Go do your support, whatever it is. You're good friends, okay? And you come back when you're ready to come. They did, and they came back ready to play. Stopped a 7-game losing streak.
Yeah, and I had heard, and this is rumor, I don't know anything, but the rumor was that Pitts had flipped off Whalen either during a game or at practice.
Ooh.
And she found out about it, and so that would be conduct detrimental to the team, a bad attitude, however you want to describe it, whether it happened or not. Again, this is rumor, and I'm sure there's really no proof to it. But having said that, I could see where if it gets to the point where a player is doing that to the coach, it's probably best that you spread yourselves apart and go your separate ways. And sometimes you have to cut things loose
In the
to
big
make
picture,
things better.
That's right. That's exactly right. Well, we'll see tonight because they're playing, I think, as we speak against
they're playing Wisconsin.
And we'll see how well that they do with this. But it seemed, I mean, just looking at the stats, that things became a little bit more invigorating. And it's, and you really don't know the inside story of what a team is like, but I think that they're straightening it out nicely.
I should have written the name down, and I should know the name, but there's a girl out of Stillwater who, since Pitts has left, has really picked it up. She's a freshman, a scoring machine, and I just wonder if there wasn't some of that pressure from Whalen, because that's a Minnesota girl from Stillwater, that we're going to play her, and maybe Destiny said, well, look, you brought me in here to be the star, and now you're giving her some of my minutes, and like I said, it's all speculation. But the Gopher women's basketball team, I think, is okay. You don't ever want to lose a player like that, but sometimes things happen for certain reasons, and we'll see what happens.
For both sides.
We'll go there. You want to go to Gopher basketball?
Go for men's basketball. They go to Columbus on Thursday. And
there's going to be one upset team when they get to Columbus.
Well, the first thing that happens is Columbus, they haven't been playing so hot.
No.
And they've lost the last 3 conference games. I think the Gophers can go in there and pick up a road win.
That'd be great.
No, I could be way wrong on that. And then they return and they meet Michigan State on Sunday in Minneapolis, and then they travel to Champaign to meet the Fighting Illini, which right now is one of the hottest teams in college basketball. So I asked the guru.
You asked the guru, okay.
How come Illinois popped up? He says Kofi Cockburn. Kofi Cockburn is 6'10", 290 pounds. When he takes off his shirt, he looks like a miniature Shaquille O'Neal.
Okay.
And he's new to basketball. I don't know how long he's been in the country, but he's out of Virginia, and he is dominating the paint right now.
So him and Daniel should be a good show.
Now, Daniel has one thing that this guy doesn't have. He can't shoot beyond a couple of feet. He's a slam dunker. But he is, I just happened to...
Well, that sounds like Shaquille O'Neal.
It does.
He couldn't shoot from he couldn't shoot a free throw. Yeah.
It was painful.
Yeah.
But anyway, and also Danny Otero was named mid-season All-American. He is number
Well
5
deserved.
in double-doubles and in rebounds. And so, hey, I think he's a good, strong kid. The challenge for Patino for them is to keep him around for a while.
Okay, so here's my question to you.
Yeah.
Playing Ohio State, Michigan State, and Illinois, in the next 3 games.
Yes.
How many times do the Gophers win in those 3 games?
I think they're going to get 2 out of 3.
Wow. They'll get 2 of the 3.
I think they're going to. Well, I'll tell you what. Michigan can be beaten. I'm not sure that that's going to happen in East Lansing. But
It can happen.
It can happen here.
Minneapolis.
7 games in the whole conference have been road wins. 7.
Yeah.
So the home team advantage is something. Why such a home team advantage? He says every team has good basketball players, and they come into their home, and the people are just rabid. They just are absolutely bonkers. And these kids pick up on that, and he says, I see it time and time again where kids are playing better than they were even capable of playing just simply because of the environment that they're in. And he says that's really tough to beat, especially in the Big Ten where everything is so competitive.
Yeah, and teams are very, very, very close.
They are.
So
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
You want to talk Gopher? You got anything else there on?
Oh, yes, on Sunday the Gophers. Now, we talked. How come Gable Stevenson didn't wrestle at heavyweight? I'm not sure they wanted to wrestle at him heavyweight. Then Morris Paris, he's the number 2 heavyweight at Michigan. And you asked me, was it possible that they avoided him? It's not only possible, it's probable.
Okay.
It's just they're taking a look, number 1 or number 2. I feel upset about that because people go to the wrestling match to see number 1 and number 2. But I think that you can, before the match, you can do the scoring and you can come in pretty close just how a dual team's going to come out. And I don't think they thought that they could even win with 6 points from Stevenson, and he wasn't going to get 6 points.
Okay.
And so
So you're right about people wanting to see the superstar matchups and everything, but you'd also agree with me that Gable hasn't wrestled a lot because of the suspension.
This is exactly what I would have done.
So is this a little bit of, we're trying to keep him a little bit fresher, we're trying to work him in because he kind of jumped into not getting any preseason. It was just kind of like, well, he's wrestling and now he's wrestling competitively. Well, so I mean, does that play part into the? Well,
it can, but I'll tell you what, it's likely it's the other way.
Sure.
Because you take a look and when Mason Paris beat Garrett Joels, who bumped up a weight from 197 pounds, and so they basically fed Joels to Paris. Here, you go out, do what you can, boy.
Yeah.
Well, he got pinned in the second period, but at that point in time, Michigan led 18 to 12. It probably, if Stevenson would have won, it probably would have been 15 to 15, and then they would have lost at 133. So anyway, Michigan won by 7 points, and so Minnesota would have lost by 1 even with. So they're just taking a look at and
now they wrestle on Sunday night.
They wrestle Ohio State on Sunday night. That's why I have my wrestling shirt on. It's going to be a dandy.
Yeah,
I am looking forward to this.
So you get Gopher basketball Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock on Fox, and then you get Gopher wrestling Sunday night at 7:30 on BTN. So
yes.
Sounds like a good day to put your Gopher stuff on and see how things happen. Ohio State ranked ahead of the Gophers nationally at 2.
Well, they are.
Is it Iowa 1, Ohio State 2,
and then Penn State?
Well, yeah, because Minnesota lost the new rankings.
Yeah.
So anyway, it ought to be a dandy.
It ought to be a good one. I'm looking forward to it.
And it's in Minneapolis, so hopefully the boys wrestle above just because they are at home and keep things exciting.
There are so many Minnesota wrestlers out there that I'm not even sure just how many are in Ohio State, but I know there's at least 1 or 2. And Minnesota's really a good place to come wrestle.
It is.
It is.
What shall we talk about next? I'll bring it up because it's going to go quick. The Timberwolves, six straight losses. They go to Chicago tonight on Wednesday, and then they host Houston on Friday. So the fact that the streak is probably going to get to 8 would not shock me. This stat got to me though. when Karl Anthony Towns was on the shelf for 15 games with the knee sprain and the sickness and whatever else, the Minnesota Timberwolves were the 4th ranked defense in the NBA. Okay?
Yeah.
The first 2 games he came back, they were ranked 22nd.
Ooh.
They went from giving up 100.4 points a game to giving up 115 points a game. Now,
That's a swing.
Somebody said it's a small sample size and you can't read a whole bunch into that, and I say, ooey, you're wrong. I can read a whole lot into that. And Karl Anthony Towns kind of made a joke about it. He says, now that I came back, you guys are going to stop playing defense? And I say, okay, Big Cat, you got to look in the mirror and say the reason why the defense is down is because you're not playing defense. And I hope he gets the message, because if he wants to be the superstar that he wants to be, that means playing both ends of the floor.
Well, and that's always been an issue, I think, in my mind with the pros. You have great offensive players, but they do have to play both ends of that court.
You watch the NBA and you watch the way those guys can shoot, even with a hand in their face. There's some nights when, I don't care how good a defense you play, you're not going to stop them. I mean, there's just that many natural scorers out there. But you do have to do the things about boxing out, and when they do miss, there are just certain things you have to do. And I guess that's kind of what pains me about the NBA, because a lot of times you don't see that kind of stuff, that team defense kind of stuff, and it makes it tough to do. So I promise not very long on the Timberwolves we won't. I'll talk about the Wild very briefly. Tough loss on Monday night. They're ahead 4-3 with 5 minutes to go. Florida scores just after that, and then they score with 5.6 seconds left. A tough one to lose at home. They're in this big stretch of home games around the All-Star break, which is this weekend, and whether you're going to watch the All-Star game or the skills competition this weekend, I like the skills competition. I hate what they've done to the game. But,
that skills competition was great.
But what are you going to do? I like watching the fastest skater and the most accurate shooting and the puck handling. I think it's awesome what those guys can do. So I don't know if that's going to be possible on the schedule, but we'll see what happens. But the Wild, tonight they got their last game before the All-Star break. They played Detroit, which is the worst team in the NHL by far. Everybody in the NHL has at least 41 points, except for Detroit, who only has 28.
Ooh.
So the Wild can't really afford to lose this game, if I can say it that way. They need to win this game at home tonight, and they are actually off until February 1st.
Oh, really?
So they've got 10 days off basically between here and their next game. So they got to go and play like the Dickens tonight and get a win, and then they can rest up and go sit in the sun for a while and do what they do. What'd you find on your...
Listen, I'll tell you what. I want to just bring this up just a little bit. Basketball, college basketball, one of the most popular sports in the country. When it comes to March Madness, people are just going nuts. Well, this year, rankings always mean
nothing.
Very little. This year, it's been a revolving door. There have been 7 teams ranked number 1 since the season's begun, and now Baylor has taken over Gonzaga, and so they got the Zags. Baylor 16-1, and they're riding a 15-game win streak. It's only the second time. This is only the second time the 7 different teams have been ranked number 1 in the season. Gonzaga, Kansas, San Diego State, and Florida State round out the top 5. That's why I was so. You take a look at what Kansas was doing. I just think, what do you have to do to get a championship?
And of course, my question is, does anybody believe in San Diego State being in the top 5? But obviously, there's a few people who do.
No, they must. They picked up a few numbers there. And then another thing on my little list here is there's Major League Baseball Hall of Fame inductions. And considering all the stuff that baseball's been going through,
they needed a little positive.
They do. And what's more positive than Derek Jeter or Marino Rivera?
Well, other than the fact that he played for the Yankees for like 26,000 years. But other than that, he's a good guy, as far as I'm concerned.
And these guys, these are the only ones that unanimously voted their first round in. And it's just... And it goes on. Now the question that I have for you.
My question is, who didn't vote for Derek Jeter? How
could you?
How could you not vote for Derek Jeter? to be into the Hall of Fame. So there was one lone voter out there to not make it unanimous, which is, well, that guy should probably have his card pulled as far as I'm concerned. But anyway.
So there's a couple of other, Larry Walker.
Larry Walker's
he's in his 10th and final year. He's on the bubble, so they say. Kurt Schilling is in his 8th year of eligibility, also on the bubble, but he's getting an increase of support over the years because, you know, he's Kurt Schilling and has
he had blood on his socks. So
yeah, he had blood on his socks.
And then he wasn't a great pitcher or anything.
And so the question I have for you, in their 8th year of eligibility, Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens.
Never.
Who are once again expected to fall short thanks to their tainted careers. That tainted career is not going to go away.
We talked about this last week with the Pete Rose thing and everything else. I think George got me all worked up last week. I promised I wasn't going to go there again this week. It really comes down to me that the managers, the people who did the cheating with the Red Sox and the Astros, if they'll just come out and come clean and say, yep, we did it, and now the whole thing about whether the wire was in Altuve's jersey and why he had to go when he hit the game-winning home run, why he had to run into the dugout and down into the thing to take off his shirt so that people couldn't see that he was wearing a wire. And now he's telling people that's a bunch of baloney, blah, 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 blah. We're going to win the World Series anyway to try to deflect some of this stuff. The best way to clear yourself and to get people back in your good graces is to admit that you did it.
Come clean.
Pete Rose denied it for 15, 20 years. When he finally, people decided, okay, Pete, we can forgive you. Baseball hasn't forgiven him, but other people have. And to me, that's part of the thing. A couple months ago, Jerry Sandusky came out and said, I didn't do that to those kids. I'm sitting here and I'm telling you it did not happen. There's not, to me, if you want sympathy, you need to come out and tell people we did it.
Yes.
The New England Patriots are hated not because they have won over and over again, because they have stretched the whatever of illegal activities, and they won't admit that they've done it, and that's where this goes. And so, there's the popular comment I hear a lot in this town: if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. That's a crap statement. And if you disagree with me, you can stop watching the show, because that's baloney. That is.
And I agree. I agree with you 100%.
You play the game the right way. You do things the right way, and if you lose doing things the right way, well, then the other team was just better than you. And so, if you're cheating,
if you're cheating, what is the point of even doing the game?
Why play the game the right way? So Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, in my mind, did it. They won't get any sympathy from me till they come clean and say, yeah, we did it, and then then we can talk about whether they should be in the Hall of Fame or not. I did that without yelling, I think, like I did last week when George put me into overdrive. Go ahead.
No, but I mean, this is the week for sports controversy to come to light, because we've had a lot of scandals lately. But we go down to Damian Lillard. He hit 60 points again this year, and it's twice that he's done that. He got 61 points.
Speaking of speaking of being just one of those nights when you get things rocking and rolling.
Yeah. So
he was only 17 for 37
from the field, 11 threes.
Not too shabby.
33 points from outside. That's a lot of points. 16 for 16 from the line. 10 rebounds and 7 assists. It's just.
So I'd like to piggyback your story about making three-pointers.
Yeah.
On Friday night, around in between the snowstorm, Deer River played Virginia in boys basketball. Virginia, I think at the time 11-1 or 12-1 on the season, and Deer River like 8-5 or something. Deer River scores with 2 seconds left. They go coast to coast, make a layup, and beat Virginia 77-76.
I was amazed at that.
For a big upset. In that game, Deer River shot 50 threes. 50 threes in that game, in a high school game. 36 minutes long, they shot 50 threes. They only made 11. Now, if you just look and said at the number made, 11 three-pointers in a high school game, that's quite a few.
Yeah.
But they shot 50. Monday night, Deer River played Moose Lake Willow River and beat them. Okay? Big win there. That Moose Lake's got a nice team. They shot 35 threes and made 16.
Ooh.
That's 45% from behind the three-point line. So there are teams out there, and Deer River being one of them, that are out there taking this three-point shooting approach that the Timberwolves and the Houston Rockets and Golden State and Atlanta and all these teams have adopted. And it looks like to me like Deer River has said, why the heck not?
Well, I think
why the heck not?
The Gophers have shown you if you can't consistently hit the three, you can't successfully compete in the Big Ten.
But to beat Virginia, one of the best teams in Section
Yes.
7 2A, and missing 39 threes.
Was that why the Virginia took it out on the boys last night?
Ooh, yeah. I figured they'd come to town upset, and I think Greenway in the hockey came to town a little upset because they lost 4-3 in overtime to Evelyn last Friday night, and Greenway kind of had the stranglehold on the IRC. If they won that game, now Evelyn beats them. Now they're tied, and the things are going to get very competitive. So Greenway came last night and put a hurt 6-1 on the Broncos, and Virginia beat the boys in basketball 82-48. Both these teams, Greenway and Virginia, are very good teams. So nothing against the Broncos, but the Broncos got them at the wrong time, coming off bad losses.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Sometimes that can hurt you.
Oh,
so
I know. It's just that's the deal with bringing in a very good angry team.
Yeah.
They can put the rough on you.
Might as well finish up talking about Broncos sports here while we got that on. Girls hockey team lost at Fort Francis. Georgia's first color opportunity. Our first international broadcast on KCC TV. So we had that one for you on Midco Channel 7. And then last night they went to Two Harbors. Actually, Silver Bay ended up to take on North Shore. Lost 6-2 there. They're at home against Moose Lake on Saturday. Boys hockey Thursday night. When you probably see this on Midco Channel 7, they're going to be getting ready to play North Shore. Another big IRC game there for the Bronco boys. Bronco boys basketball team is going to be at home on Thursday night against War Road. Hopefully you're watching this show just prior to us coming on the air to do that game on Midco Channel 7 and on kcc-tv.org. And then the boys get CI on Saturday. No easy task there.
No.
With that game coming to town. Girls basketball is at Mesabi East on Thursday. Whew.
That's tough.
That's tough. Mesabi East lost to Proctor on Monday night, Tuesday night, Monday night. Lost to Proctor. Proctor probably is the top team in Section 7 2A. Mesabi East is probably the second best team. We've talked about Ava Hill on this show quite a bit.
Yes.
And her and Hannah Hanuxel will make that team run. So the Broncos will have their hands full. And then on Saturday, the girls go to Crosby Arrington. So both basketball teams play Crosby Arrington. The wrestlers will be in Walker Hackensack Akeley tomorrow on Thursday for a quadrangular on
I could tell
Thursday.
you some stories about Walker. Yeah, that was. We went down there every year for a tournament, and Walker had themselves great coach and some great wrestlers, and they would bring in a couple of officials from Park Rapids, and one of them, his name was Andy McCarty. Now Andy was a very fine teacher and coach, and he and John the Bear Holler would get very angry to each other, and then the Bear left, and then he still thought that I was him because we had beards and could yell and stuff. It took us 2 or 3 years to sort that out. That I wasn't. And he was looking to drill me every time. I could tell that he was going to flag me, but he never did. It's an amazing.
And the boys, the boys swimming and diving team was supposed to go to Virginia this Friday for a triangular, but Virginia got chosen to go to the state true team meet as a wild card team.
Oh, wow.
So they're going to take up on that offer. So that meet will be postponed. So the boys swimming and diving's got about 2 weeks off to start getting into the taper. Start working towards that taper that's coming because their sections.
Taper, is that when they shave all the hair?
Well, that's part of the. Yeah, it was when they start swimming a little bit less. But, here's the scary part. I think it's February 6th, if I'm doing the date off the top of my head. The Bronco girls hockey team, 2 weeks from Thursday, 2 weeks from when you're probably going to get a chance to watch this, are going to be starting the playoffs.
Already. Oh, boy.
So then you start going into the next week, and then the wrestling starts, and then the boys hockey starts, and then the girls basketball starts, and the boys. And pretty soon we're going to be in that March Madness that you brought up a little while ago. And hey, let her rip.
Well, I'll tell you, as long as you bring it up, I really enjoyed watching the Broncos play the other day, and seeing the Canadian team. They were an excellent team, and they were really, really fun to watch. The Falls had a couple of girls that they're out there hammering, and Emma and Macy, they both had pretty fantastic games, but they're young, and Source Fort Francis, they're only losing 2 seniors. These kids are going to be good for a while.
It's going to be fun to watch.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
What else you got in that packet? Anything else?
Here,
I only got one more. Well, I got 2 more things on my list.
Okay.
But Maya Moore announced today that she is not going to play for the Minnesota Lynx again this year. She is going to work on trying to free a man from prison who she believes is innocent. And she's going to use her times and efforts to try to assist this man instead of playing basketball.
A couple of things. We got Rocky said that Nolan Arendo trade talks are off, but Colorado third baseman responded by saying there's a lot of disrespect from people in the Rockies organization. I don't want to be part of it. Okay, so much of that. Felix Hernandez signed $1 million minor league contract with Atlanta. He'll get a non-roster spot to compete for a 5th spot in the rotation. And Dusty Baker is now open as being considered for the job of the Houston Astros manager. Good to see Dusty back.
That would be fun to see him back.
That would be fun to see him back.
And I don't even know if I should bring this up, but there's been so much flack for the NFL about not hiring African American coaches.
Yes.
And
baseball too.
Baseball is also there, and of course Dusty has been a manager for a lot of years for a lot of teams. I remember growing up, he was a great player for the Dodgers,
he was.
And so to me that would be a great hire. I think he would do a great job. Of course, with all the stuff that Houston's not going to have this year, I mean, cheating-wise, we'll see how that all plays out. They do have talent. Don't get me wrong. Houston has a lot of talent. There's a reason why they were able to make it over the hump, though. And
anyway,
last thing I have is Australian Open. I told you, George.
Yes.
The Australian Open started on Sunday night, and Coco Gauff, a 15-year-old American, the phenom, the next, in my mind, the next Serena Williams. She played last night, got pushed to the brink. She won in 3 sets. She gets to take on Naomi Osaka coming up in the next round, the 3rd round, and she's won a couple of majors over the past few years. So it'll be interesting to see how Coco pans through on that. But this morning I got up to get ready for school and go, do the normal day, and I walked downstairs to take a shower, and I'll just turn the TV on to see if the Australian Open is still on, because that happens when it's 7 o'clock in the morning. Our time, it's midnight. They're 17 hours ahead of us. They're that far ahead of us. And by gosh, there's tennis on. Well, I was almost late for school because I was watching the 5th set of a match between 2 guys, an Australian and Fognini from Italy, who's ranked in the top 10. And anyway, it was some phenomenal 5th set stuff. 5 match points lost, and they went to a 10-point set break. Anyway, it was fun. It was interesting. But just to tell you that it's. Is it a sickness? I don't know. Maybe my wife might think that I'm nuts, but it was worth getting up and watching and almost being late for school.
You can't like underestimate when your wife calls you crazy. But I did hear a story today about Minnesota United soccer team.
Ah, yes.
They signed a kid from I think he's from Cottage Grove.
Okay.
He's a goaltender. He's 6'5", 210 pounds. He's 15 years old, Tim.
Wow!
And he was working out with the team this weekend. So they found themselves a little bit of a prodigy right there in Minneapolis, and he's a goaltender.
That'd be very cool. Yeah. The Loons lost their goaltender from last year, who I think was a big part of why they made the playoffs.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I mean, we signed him away from a European team. That's part of the deal. He wanted a little bit more money, probably deserved it, but the Loons said, well, here we go. We got to play the game. So my goal this year is to get down to a Loons game at Alliance Field in St. Paul.
Take a look at here. You have this Major League Soccer team with a brand new stadium. And it's just like other teams. They start out, they got to go into the old stadium, yeah, this is a totally equipped, brand new job, and so I really hope they make it. I think they will. It's a very popular sport down there. We don't do much of it up here.
Yeah, and they did it right, and some people may say no, but MLS took the right approach to it. They built stadiums that are 25,000, 20,000.
Yeah.
They didn't go for these 70,000. Some places did, but most places haven't, and said, look, we're going to fill these places, make the product look great, and if the ticket prices go up, well, that just tells you how popular it is. And so they understand that they're working through and playing at the same time as baseball, football, and all this other stuff.
There's a nice mid-sized stadium, like St. John's and St. Thomas, 30,000 people. Everybody's enjoying it, and so I think it's a good thing.
Anything else?
I can't think of anything. How about you?
Well, we could probably sit here and talk forever, but I promised myself we were going to keep this show shorter than the last two shows we've gone have been over 55 minutes. We've kept it under 45 this week. I think that's got good.
1 week from Sunday is the Super Bowl. We better figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah, we'll figure out what we're going to do for that for the Super Bowl show. In the past we've had a show that I used to do in the past that we used to go around on Sunday afternoon, but I think I'd like to go do that before, so we have a little bit more that people get to see the show before the Super Bowl.
That's fine.
So we'll see. We'll talk about that. Here from the Rainier Muni, we'll discuss that and other things that are coming up. Remember, Thursday night we've got Bronco Boys basketball on KCC TV -TV.org, and on Midco Channel 7. Thanks, everybody.
You're busy.